What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to talk about Soundwave. And I know it's literally been 4 days since Wave 3 gave us our first Soundwave, but now we've got to look at a second Soundwave. It is coming in the Blaster versus Soundwave deck. Now, I've already done a video about Blaster, and in that I told you that there were actually 2 versions of the deck. The G1R is available at Comic-Con in San Diego, Gen Con, PAX Unplugged, and from Hasbro Pulse Online after the fact, and then the regular version will just be released regularly. I also told you that there was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive booster coming as well. I went through all of that in the previous video along with Blaster and his mini-cassettes. Check it out, I'll pop a link in the description. The point of this video here is to talk all about Soundwave and Soundwave's mini-cassettes. So, let's get rolling, shall we? So, starting off with Soundwave then, we've got a 10-star character. But of course, we've then got the free mini-cassettes, which bring it up to a 25-star character. You don't have to play it as a straight Soundwave deck, but really you're probably going to play it as a straight Soundwave deck. Now, the good news is here that the stats are pretty good. I mean, in alt mode you don't have any attack, which is kind of sad, but you're literally a cassette player. Also, let me know in the comments, how many of you ever actually owned a cassette player? I'd like to know. I did, incidentally. Nerd. And in bot mode, we're looking at 415 and 2. Well, 412-2 in Wave 1 was the average for an 8-star character, although that's fallen a bit since. So 415-2, that's a pretty decent stat line for a 10-star character. Plus, you are both a leader and a specialist. Specialist means that you get to use Field Communicator to play the top card of your deck, which I love. And you also get to use Callous Leadership to move some damage off of Soundwave onto another one of your mini-cassettes. So that's really cool. So far, so good. Now, you start in alt mode, and just like with Blaster, your starting star limit increases by 1 for each mini-cassette on your starting team. So the general theory here is that you would have 3 mini-cassettes with Soundwave, which would give you a 25-star deck. But because you've got the 3 mini-cassettes under Soundwave, you're actually allowed to have a 28-star deck. So you can start playing some star cards as well. That's really cool. And just like with Blaster, Soundwave starts the game with all the mini-cassettes on your team underneath it. So again, this is very much like Metroplex, for instance, whereby you start the game with 1 character and then you have to try and furiously flip them back and forth between modes to deploy all the characters underneath it. Cool. Well, what about the bot mode then? Well, when you flip into bot mode, you deploy a mini cassette from under this to the battlefield in bot mode. When you do, look at your opponent's hand, choose a card from it, they then put that card on top of their deck. So we've got a little bit of hand disruption going on here. Now, as a side note, I am a much bigger fan of Blaster here in terms of the skill, because Blaster lets you play the top card of your deck. And I think the ruling here is going to be the same. It says when you do look at your opponent's hand and choose a card from it, they put it on top of their deck. What that means is that if you've already deployed all of your mini-cassettes and then you flick Soundwave into bot mode, you don't get to grab a card from their hand and put it on top of their deck. Of course, this is going to be during your turn, so you're going to put a card on top of their deck, and then you're going to battle and they're going to be defending. So you are basically discarding it, but as well as discarding it, you're fixing the first card they flip when you attack. So as long as you put down, say, an orange icon card, you can really hurt your opponent there. Take away a card they want, and make sure that they're flipping at least 1 fewer blue. That's kind of cool. I don't like it as much as Blaster's skill, but it's still a fun little skill. And then, of course, what you really want to do is play around with cards like Rapid Conversion and Rollout to try and flick Soundwave back and forth as often as you can, deploy those mini cassettes as quick as you can. But the thing is, these mini-cassettes are a little bit beefier and, frankly, a little bit better than Metroplex's little dudes. Although Metroplex's little dudes are great for Metroplex. So if we start off having a little bit of a look at Ravage here, we can see that it is a 5-star character. They're all 5-star characters. And it is a melee character. Good news is you get to use Power Sword to give yourself Bold free or Body Armor to give yourself Tough free. The bad news is we're now starting to mix designations. So Soundwave wants to be a specialist, but Ravage wants to be a melee character. We'll look as we go to see how much overlap there is. Now, the stat line of 391 is weirdly exactly the same as all of the bots we saw in the Blaster deck. And I'm going to spoil the surprise here. It's the exact same stat line for all 3 of the mini-cassettes that we see with Soundwave. And look, for 5-star characters, these ain't bad. Like I said, we'd expect 412-2 from an 8 cost, so 391 on a 5 cost is fine. No, it's not stunning, but it's certainly not embarrassing. In alt mode, Ravage has stealth. They all have stealth in alt mode. Gives them a little bit of protection. Means that you can keep them on the board, because as much as they've got decent stats for a 5 cost, you're still talking 9 health, 1 defense. That's not going to keep them out and about and flourishing for very long at all. So being able to protect them with stealth, yeah, that's pretty gosh darn good. I am alright with this. And if you want to get rid of stealth, flip them into bot mode. Job's a good one. When you flip Ravage to alt mode, one of your characters gets Pierce 2 until end of turn. That means you guarantee to do 2 damage as long as your attack is at least 2. Pierce guarantees damage equal to your attack or Pierce, whichever is lower. This is nice. We got all those black icon cards in wave 3. Maybe you play a few of those. Maybe you go into a nice little piercing deck. Certainly this could be used to buff up your other mini-cassettes, but it could also buff up Soundwave. If we are in bot mode, we've got static permanent skills. Ravage itself has Pierce 2. Yes. You can flick to alt mode, give yourself Pierce 2, then flick back into bot mode and you would have Pierce 4 here, because you can just designate yourself when you flick into alt mode. It says one of your characters, not one of your other characters. And then each of your characters with 10 stars or more has Tough 1. If you're playing this as a Soundwave deck, that means that Soundwave is going to have Tough 1. Now, to be fair, you could play Soundwave just with Ravage and have 10 stars left over, and then both Soundwave and the other dude would have Tough 1, as long as it was a 10-star dude. But I think this is more just buffing up Soundwave, giving a little bit of extra bulk. I'm alright with it. Moving on, we can have a little bit of a look here at Frenzy. And you've probably noticed, but just to be clear, I'm showing you both the artworks as we go through these cards. Frenzy then, again, we've got a 5-star character. Again, we've got 9 health, 1 defense, and either 0 or 3 attack. It's going to be the same. And we've got a second melee character here. So we've got Power Sword, we've got Body Armor, but now 2 of the 3 mini-cassettes are melee characters and can make use of it. That's wonderful. And what we see here is stealth. That makes sense in alt mode. And when you flip to this mode, your opponent reveals the top 2 cards of their deck. You may have your opponent scrap those cards. Now, what's very important here is that it says those cards, not one or more of those cards or any number of those cards. What we're saying here is either you make them scrap both or you make them scrap neither. But the thing is here, you're going to be about to attack because it's going to be your turn. So if you have a look and they've got, I don't know, 2 security checkpoint that's going to give them 2 double blues, yeah, you make them scrap them. Chances of them having 2 double blues are incredibly slim. I mean, you're not going to pull that off often, but you know it's going to happen occasionally, and when it does, it's going to be fantastic. Nice. If we go into bot mode, enemies cannot use tough when you attack. Now, tough is not as prevalent as bold, although one of Blaster's mini-cassettes does turn off bold when attacked, which is kind of cool. But it just turns off tough. It means that they are only flipping 2 battle cards, maybe 4 if they hit a white icon. It means if you're playing against a particularly tough deck, and to be fair, we did see tough played on, like Flamor and Autobot Hot Rod in the winning deck at Origin, so tough does get played. Second place deck as well. Maybe tough is better than I'm giving it credit for. Point is, they can't use tough against you. That means it's more likely you'll get a KO, and life is good. And finally, we can have a look at Buzzsaw. Buzzsaw here then, 5-star, and same stats as before. And in alt mode, you've got stealth, which is nice. When you flip to this mode, you may move a weapon from one of your characters to another one. Now this is really, really nice because there are certain things that you can do and certain moves that you can pull off. So let's say, for argument's sake, let's go Energon Axe. I love Energon Axe. Gives you +3 attack, gives you PS2. Works really well with Ravage, incidentally. And the thing is that it can only be attached to damaged characters. So one of the things you can do here is just put it on your only damaged character. But then if the one you want to actually use it with becomes damaged, you flip Buzzsaw and you can move it to the one you want. Or you attack with one character, they are then tapped, and you use Buzzsaw to move Energon Axe to a second character, and in theory you can use the same weapon on multiple characters, because you might not always draw into your Energon Axe. There's no green icon, there's no guarantee you're going to get it, you might just keep flipping it while attacking or defending and never draw into it. But Buzzsaw's like, look mate, if you've got one, we can work with that, because we can just keep moving it around. So I like this quite a bit. But I really like the bot mode skill here. When this attacks, you may play a blue weapon. It does not say onto Buzzsaw, so you can play a blue weapon wherever you like. This is very reminiscent of Captain Ironhide, except Captain Ironhide gets to swap a weapon on him for a blue weapon. This lets you just play a blue weapon onto any of your characters. And it would work with something like Energon Axe. Although, to be clear, Energon Axe, you can still only put it on a character that is damaged. So you cannot play it onto an undamaged character using Buzzsaw. You cannot move it onto an undamaged character using Buzzsaw. Let's be nice and clear about this. But how about something else? How about armed hovercraft? I love Buzzsaw with armed hovercraft. You are a ranged character, which is lovely. So you get to play an armed hovercraft when you attack. And there's nothing to stop you playing an armed hovercraft to do 1 damage to all of your opponent's characters, then attacking and playing a second one from your hand and doing another damage to all of your opponent's characters. Now, that is my cheeky way of telling you that Buzzsaw is a ranged character, but this is the last character we're talking about. It's the only ranged character in the deck. And that is one of the downsides I find about this Soundwave group of characters. We got 2 melee, 1 specialist, 1 ranged, and that's not ideal. Whereas in Blaster we had 2 melee, 2 specialist, here we have still got 2 melee, but 1 ranged, 1 specialist. It means if you're playing something like Armed Hovercraft, it can only go on Buzzsaw. If you're playing Field Communicator, it can only go on to Soundwave, which means those cards are going to get a lot less utility than they otherwise might, which is a little bit sad. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm in love with these decks. I am absolutely in love with them. If I have any say in the matter, I will be very much making sure that I get myself both the comic booky G1 art version and the regular version, because they're both awesome. But I would very much like to know what you think about this Soundwave deck, and if you're digging Soundwave or Blaster more. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter @Wossy, where we talk about Transformers, but also Pokemon, Keyforge, Chrono Clash, Final Fantasy, whatever games take my Final Fantasy. Ha! But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy plays.